Hey, folks, welcome back to the second hour of this Tuesday edition of Metro News Talk Live. I'm Mike Queen, sitting in for Hoppy, who's on a much-deserved vacation. He says he's on a staycation, so he's somewhere in West Virginia. So if he's listening, I want to give a big shout-out to Hoppy Kirchville, and I appreciate the opportunity and the confidence he has in me to host this show. I'm having a lot of fun, and we'll continue to do it throughout the week. One of the post-issue debates as it relates to the most recent general election here in West Virginia is what in the world is going to happen to the Democrat Party? Has the conservative wing taken over the party, although it seems to represent a much smaller portion of the Democrat Party as opposed to the Bernie Sanders Democrats? I call them the Bernie Sanders Democrats that worked and won every county in West Virginia. So what does happen to the state party? I've reached out to Belinda Biafor, who's the state chair, and she won't talk with me. And I've reached out to other leaders of the Democrat Party that are in official positions, and they don't want to talk about that right now. But there is somebody that does want to talk about it, and that's Charlotte Pritt. Charlotte Pritt was the 1996 Democrat nominee for governor, and most recently in the general election was the Mountain Party nominee for governor. She joins me on the phone now. Charlotte, good morning to you. It's always nice to have you. Are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Hey, Charlotte, you've made no puns about it. You're pretty upset with the conservative wing of the Democrat Party. What say you about the future of the party? Where does it go from here?
Well, I think this is a wake-up call for the Democratic Party to start listening to the constituents more. And we do have Democrats who did win, and those were primarily people who were progressive Democrats, in the Kanawha County area and other areas. I think this is, anytime we're thrown a lemon like this, it's a good opportunity to make lemonade and for us to take an assessment of where we are and what we need to do to move forward. I've continued to meet with people throughout the state, progressives, and some of those are Democrats who want to work even harder and to revise the Democratic Party, the progressive part, and some of those are Mountain Party people who are more committed than ever to making certain that the Bernie Sanders perspective of the Democratic Party, of course, we've been doing that perspective in the Mountain Party now for 12 years, actually 16 years now we've been on the ballot, and it's always been that progressive perspective focusing on issues, and what's really neat, Mike, that we have people from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party who have moved beyond the issues to look at, moved beyond the labels to look specifically at the issues that are affecting the people in West Virginia. And I think this is what's happened to the Democratic Party, the progressive wing. The Democratic Party became more and more conservative and turned its back on the issues that were really important to the Democratic base and the people of West Virginia. It had to do with, do we have drinkable water? What's happening with the opioid situation here? What's happening with employment? And, what can we do to address the issues of being able to have economic development, but yet make certain that it's not destroying the drinking water, the air we breathe, and destroying the land? So these are really serious issues that need to be discussed and need to be addressed in a way that people feel they're heard and they feel that they have help. The Mountain Party's been doing that for a long time, and I think that's why more and more people are gravitating to the Mountain Party, whether it's Republican or Democrat. I'm hopeful that people of both parties, Republican and Democrat, will start listening to their base, to the people of West Virginia, who are primarily people who are working people who need their help. And we think that this kind of wake-up call about what's happening, we hope, the Mountain Party hopes it will make everyone more sensitive to their constituents and listen to the issues that are near and dear to people's hearts.
We're talking with Charlotte Pritt. We're talking about the future of the Democrat Party here in West Virginia. Charlotte, could it be as Belinda Biafor and Larry Puccio and even Joe Manchin says from time to time that the Democrat Party has become more conservative because of the base, because of that base? I mean, there are a lot of union members who who vote Republican, who are now registered Republican. Is it the Democrat Party's challenge to kind of keep up with those Democrats who, frankly, like me, have gone to the Republican Party? How do you respond to something like that?
Well, I think it's very clear that when you try to, in the Democratic Party doesn't need to be a mini-me Republican Party. It needs to be the FDR New Deal Democrat Party so that people have a choice. It's very interesting in the discussion about so-called third parties and not being able to debate, in the sense that in all democracies throughout the world, countries who call themselves democracies, there are multiple parties. And to say that there is a third party, well, they would be mystified. Well, who would be the third party? So I think we are looking at everything right now, not only how the parties are finding themselves, but the fact that we are really a sham democracy because we really have basically a one-party duopoly. They're both standing for the same thing. And unless you have multiple parties with discussions about the issues, and all the candidates have an opportunity to speak, then you can't consider yourself a real democracy. And so I think this is what...
Go ahead.
I think this is what's happening right now, is because people realize, hey, it's the same thing. It's me or mini-me. It's the conservative or mini-conservative, and they don't see the real choice. They don't see candidates being fielded or even know about candidates here in the United States. Oh, I want to share one thing that I thought was very telling. I was in the Eastern Panhandle discussing issues, and someone brought up, well, why didn't we know about you? Why aren't you allowed to debate? And I said, well, that's really a sad thing. And one of the women in the audience came up to me later, and she's from Lithuania, which is, I think, a Russian satellite. And she said, we have 10 parties in Lithuania. And I said, well, how many get to debate? And she looked at me and she said, well, all of them, of course. Of course, all of them get to debate because the citizens would not stand for not knowing who all the candidates were and their positions on it. So I think part of the problem here we have in the United States is we're so insular that we don't realize that democracies do it differently in other parts of the world, and we need to start looking at what does constitute, a real democracy, and that means hearing all the different perspectives. So what I think has happened in West Virginia is what happened nationally is that citizens did not believe that they had a choice, or they weren't able to hear the choices that they had, like Gary Johnson, more on the Republican, the Libertarian, Jill Stein, Charlotte Pritt in West Virginia, who wasn't allowed to debate. So I think this is a good point, Mike, for us to be able to stop and think about, okay, what does it mean to have democracy, and what do we need to do to make certain that we here at all we're participating in a democracy and not a totalitarian duopoly where one party, you have two parties, but they're really just one. I think that's what's happening.
Is it easier to start a third party or to get the Democrat Party from which you really have the biggest concern? And I mean, what kind of reception are you getting from Melinda Beaufort and Larry Puccio and the leaders of the Democrat Party now?
Well, they've always just been terrified of having another perspective, which I think is very, very sad. And it speaks of not having democracy. Some people will try to say, oh, blame the third party. And it's so ludicrous because what they're saying, we don't want to have a real democracy. And when it comes to the Democratic Party, a lot of people, progressives from both parties, environmentalists, Teddy Roosevelt, former Republicans are coming to the Mountain Party, and then also Democrats are coming to the Mountain Party because they don't see the Democratic Party changing. They see the leadership being the same. They may have made a change in the platform, but the candidates are still, let's face it, Jim Justice is really a Republican. So,
right. And was a Republican until he filed to run for governor, right?
Yeah, and so, in all fairness, I think that the people of West Virginia are moving beyond just labels, and that's why you have union people voting for Republican, becoming Republican, because they're just frustrated when you continue.
My guest is Charlotte Pritt. She is. We're talking about the future of the Democrat Party. She's a former legislator, former state senator, longtime educator, and was a gubernatorial nominee for the Democrat Party in 1996. Charlotte, the Mountain Party didn't gather a whole lot of support in the general election, which at least it indicates they've got a long, long, long way to go before it becomes a viable party. What kind of steps do you take to ensure that it does become a viable party if you're not going to work within the Democrat Party to change the Democrat to a more progressive agenda?
Well, I think there are progressives who are working, who are going to stay in the party to see if if they can do any change with it. Most of them are saying, I've been in there for a long time, and they're coming to the Mountain Party. The Mountain Party basically is just being allowed to debate. I mean, the fact that we haven't been able to debate for some time because we're growing. Actually, the Mountain Party is the only party in the state that is really moving in the right direction, in the sense that the Democrats are losing ground. We're gaining ground in the sense of more people coming over and seeing that they have a place there. So what we do is we just do what we've always done, and that is we focus on the issues. We welcome people from